Hey sports fans, Coach Nick here, and welcome to BBallBreakdown and another edition of Court Call with Ronnie Nunn. I'm very excited to bring this show back this year, and if you haven't seen it or you don't know, Ronnie Nunn was an NBA referee for 20 years, head of NBA referees for 5 more, and knows more about the ins and outs of the game than anybody else you're going to talk to. So Ronnie, thanks so much for joining us again today.
All right, great to be here with you, Coach Nick, and excited that we're looking at plays again and familiarizing our fans and enjoying what we see as it relates to officiating especially.
Absolutely. Well, I hope that you're watching this on our brand new mobile app because it's a terrific way to watch it and has all of our content in one place. And don't forget, if you see a call in the game that you want us to go over and review, get on Twitter, tell us the date and the teams and the time and the quarter, use the hashtag CourtCall, and we will put it in our hopper and figure out if we can put it on the list and break it down for you.
I like it.
All right. Well, Ronnie, let's get into our first call for this week, which is on January 10th, Sunday night, we had OKC versus Portland, and a really interesting debate that I had on Twitter, and I have to apologize because I was way off on this, was when we have Damian Lillard making a pass to the pinch post area, and the guy just completely misses the pass. And then walk us through what happens here and what happened with the call.
Yeah, obviously, this is a violation, and obviously, it's called a travel or a double dribble or whatever one of those violations we want to use. But the bottom line is, if the official believes and recognizes that there's a pass, and then the player actually retrieves his own pass, it's a travel. You can pass a ball to start a dribble, which people don't know. You can throw a ball ahead of you and then continue the dribble. But you can't grab it. You have to continue a dribble. And in this case, it's obvious that he was passing. His receiver wasn't ready. He goes and chases it down. And whether he dribbles it or whether he secures it, it's a violation.
Okay, so there's two things going on there, which is interesting. So one, the thing I was surprised about was that the referee has the discretion to decide if it was a pass or not, because that was what I was arguing. You can throw the ball out there and then you can continue dribbling it, but I like that, where he can now decide if it was a pass. So here's the other thing. My question was, what if he just picked it up after it was bouncing for a little while?
Same thing. Picking up a pass, that's something that is deemed as a pass, a judgment that it is a pass. You cannot be the first to touch it. The passer or the starter of that play cannot be the first to touch that ball, whether to continue a dribble, recognizing, oh, geez, I better continue my dribble, or I just got to go and get and retrieve that ball. Unless, of course, the receiver might have deflected it and it touched him or someone else. That would have been different.
Well, for you players out there, you can see him calling he wants to screen for the ball, but he calls it for it in such a way that it looks like he's calling for the pass. So don't do that if you're out there in the court with your point guard and make him look bad.
Right.
Let's go to the second quarter of the same game where we had Enes Kanter grab a rebound, and things were going pretty well for him until the brakes hit and the whole cart fell off the wheels. So what happened here, Ronnie?
Yeah, almost the same thing. Here's a guy passing the ball thinking that his player is going to break for it, and Kanter gets the rebound, and he throws out now a very soft pass, and sure enough, it doesn't get there, and the first to retrieve it, of course, is the passer. And it is 2 plays in the same game that was kind of unique. Sometimes it is not noticed, but the official noticed it, and obviously the fans might have picked up on this and recognizing that a passer cannot be the first to retrieve his own pass.
And then the thing I thought was interesting was that he hadn't dribbled it yet. So that was another sort of idea where, okay, maybe he's sort of beginning a dribble again. But again, same rule applies, right? It's really fascinating it's a travel no matter what happens.
Yeah, that's good. One was started here with a possession with Kanter. The other one was started on a dribble because you can dribble pass. Mm-hmm. And so kind of interesting. Both plays, they're unique.
Absolutely. Well, again, a big no-no. If you're going to throw that pass, fire it at somebody and hope for the best.
Right.
Let's move on to our third clip, which happened in overtime on Tuesday the 12th. We had Dallas versus Cleveland, and this was a legit epic game. These guys were going back and forth at each other. And I got a quick story to tell you because remember the movie It's a Wonderful Life?
Yes.
So you might remember the famous scene when they're dancing and the pool opens up, or the gym opens up and there's a pool underneath the floor.
Right.
Well, that gym exists, and it exists at Beverly Hills High School. And I was in a tournament there with my team when I was coaching in high school. And
Wow.
the backboards are, not in the floor. They're in like the hockey, wall around the edge of the court. Not very sturdy. And
Right.
we had a guy on the other team who kept going up and knocking the backboard under the guise of going for a block shot, but we were shooting like 15 footers. And they weren't calling goaltending. The balls were bouncing all over off the rim. The rim was shaking. And I got at least one technical. I don't think I got a second and got thrown out, but I stormed on the court because he wouldn't call it.
Okay.
Here we are, though, in overtime, Dallas versus Cleveland, and we have a drive by Darren Williams in a critical moment. And we see LeBron James goes up for the block. What do you see on this play?
Well, this is an interesting play because the board is touched. And I think when you really do it in slow-mo, the best way to see if boards are touched is to see the glass. The glass will show reflection of light in movement. And when you see this, it's very, very nil to just about no. And the other, it's the nature of this play. Did the touching of the board really affect the shot, which is also a goaltending criteria? So the board is touched. The ball doesn't come off the board, for example, into the rim. It sort of hits to the back of the rim, and it doesn't sit itself to where you can see that the shot was really affected by this. It's just as if a guy threw a ball shooting poorly on a layup, and he just bangs it off the board, and another guy happens to touch the board at the same time. It really had no chance to go in. This is the same situation. Now, what you usually see on a board that's touched and vibrates is when a ball is on the rim or on the flange, which is the part that holds the rim. Now a ball that's sitting up there, and all of a sudden you can really notice then if a board is hit and it affects if the board is hit and it affects the ball and it comes off. So, or it goes in for the wrong team, depending on the situation, which team member did it. So basically, this is a good no-call play, and I'm glad the guys are sorted as that. As a matter of fact, if they had called it, they could have had a chance to go look at it, because you have to call a goaltending play to have it reviewed in the 2-minute marker in a game.
But there is a rule, though, so just so we're clear, the rule does exist that if it was deemed violent enough, and perhaps, it actually wouldn't even matter if he tried to lay it in off the glass, right? If he shook it enough, it would be a goaltend.
Yeah, if he shook it enough, it would be a goaltend, again, with the understanding that the ball had a chance to go in, and that vibration created the problem.
Absolutely. Well, let's move on to our last clip for this show, which is in Denver when Golden State came to town, and it was another really good game, exciting. Way at the end of the game, with 2.8 seconds left, there's an interesting situation here, because obviously with Golden State down by 2, they have a chance with free throws being shot by Denver. So walk us through what you see here, because obviously, I'll quickly, just to set it up, if they miss a free throw, they can call timeout and then inbound at the sideline or at the half court at their own, near their own basket, and get a better shot. So walk us through the rules and how this progresses.
Well, usually, and I think it may have happened in this case, a team will say, we want, touch on to the referees, this one closest to the sideline or whatever, to the coaches, or maybe a player can tell a referee, we want a timeout, make or miss of this shot. That's great. It puts the officials on alert. It makes them more vigilant about the play, and but they also have to tell their players that they want a timeout. So it's almost like Thompson is playing for real. He's not recognizing that this team may want a timeout, so he hurts this situation a little bit. But getting back to the officials usually respond, as I've always done, and said, yes, okay, I know you want it, but you must call it when this, unveils itself, when the play is live. And apparently one of the officials, by the time he did see it, the request for timeout, Thompson was already into a dribble. However, a great point guard, there's many reasons for the subtleties of great point guard work. It's Curry, in fact, that gets this timeout signal up at the same time that Thompson secures the ball before his dribble is initiated. And if that official would have noticed it, it would have been a legal timeout, because there was no advancement of the ball. You can have a timeout registered while a rebound and a player is in the air. So if a guy is saying something to you about, I want a timeout, and they're secure of that ball and he hasn't even reached the ground yet, that timeout is legal to be given. So it's unfortunate that they did not recognize Curry. And because Curry probably has his hands up for a signal at timeout as soon as Thompson gets the ball. And by the way, it's not always a signal. A player can call it audibly to you, and you can respond to that. That's what makes officials say, I know this timeout was then, and I can put time back on the clock because I know who's asking me for the timeout. And even though the signal wasn't given, you can also give a timeout. So there's two things going on, the oral signal and the physical signal.
Right. Now, obviously, Klay Thompson spaced and thought they didn't have any more timeouts left because that's a big, brain fart on one end. From a coach's perspective, I would, obviously you have to make sure, especially when you have time on a free throw, to make that everyone knows you're going to call a timeout. But also, while Curry does call it, I think what I would have had him do is literally stand next to the referee because he's not in part of the rebounding, and maybe even have a hand on him, just a hand on his arm and like squeeze it, right? You know what I mean? Just to really make sure. And that might be a good suggestion for any level when you really need that timeout. Although that said, there isn't any other level that allows you to advance the ball in a timeout anyway.
Yeah, and you make a good point because this is the kind of association that officials, players, and coaches can have with each other on live play and anticipation play. These are the good things that coordinate the administration of a game. So the players can help themselves, the coach can help himself, and the officials can help themselves by not missing it if all are recognizing that the timeout is imminent and someone steps up to make sure it's confirmed when that ball is secured. And in this case, it wasn't. And that's why your point is well taken for the team.
Now, what happened was after the fact, they reviewed the play and they came out the next day and said, you know what, it was a mistake. They shouldn't have been allowed to advance the ball, which they ended up letting them do. Didn't hurt anything because they didn't score and they didn't tie the game or win the game. But again, there's an example where the referees reviewed it and they disagreed. They felt like that was a call that when the guy finally recognized it, it was too late.
Yeah, it was a very fluid play. There was no stoppage to Thompson's securing of the ball going right into the dribble. So that made it fluid and it makes it more difficult. But again, if you are aware, for example, if that official on the bottom of our screen knew also that a timeout was imminent and they wanted it, he could have gone and had a huddle with his two partners and said, look, I have that timeout upon securing the ball, and it was by Curry because I physically showed me that the timeout and the securing of the ball was simultaneous. But I think it was so close, and officials can do but so much for a team in terms of the fairness of the game. And again, the official that finally noticed it, it was after the fact that the dribble was initiated, and because of that, it's the way it is. I mean, the officials can't call a timeout for you. You must call it.
That's right. Well, another terrific show. Great way of breaking these things down. I think it made it a lot clearer for everybody involved when they're watching this. So I'm raring to go. I can't wait to get more calls into our queue. So don't forget, sports fans, use that hashtag court call and use Twitter. Let us know when you see a call that you don't understand or agree with. And I guarantee you we'll get it in there and Ronnie will break it down and I'll just kind of be along for the ride.
You're doing pretty good, man.
Well, thanks so much for joining us. And don't forget, sports fans, at B-Ball Breakdown, we're not a channel, we're a conversation. You in? You in, Ronnie?
Coach. I'm in, Coach.